Hey guys, and welcome back to Mad About Skin. In today's video, we're talking the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen ban, a topic which I've been flooded with questions about over the past week. So I thought now is a good time to sit down and talk through everything. We're going to discuss why this ban has come into place, specifically in the US. We're going to talk about what it means for consumers, and of course, I'm going to share with you the best Korean sunscreen alternatives if you can no longer get your hands on this product. Sit back, relax, let's talk the Korean sunscreen ban. Now, before we get into today's video, I would love to know what your own hot take is on this topic. Sound off in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. I always love to sit down with a big cup of tea, read your comments, and reply to each and every one of them. So yeah, if you have the time of your day, leave me a comment because I would love to hear from you. Also, if you want to see more content like this, where we do a little bit of a deep dive into the current goings on in the skincare world, talk about some hot topics and all of that good stuff, let me know by reaching down and giving the video a big thumbs up and a like. In today's video, I'm going to share with you some of my personal recommendations for alternatives to the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen, and just note that those are entirely sponsorship and paid partnership free. Here on Mad About Skin, I always turn down that coin to hopefully retain my independence and bring you guys recommendations that come from the heart and have never been bought and paid for. So if you want to support me as an independent, sponsorship-free content creator, that like button is where it's at. Now, we've got a lot to get through in today's video, so let's cut that waffle and delve straight on in. So, the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen ban. This has been a hot topic online for the past 7 days, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And with that, as with a lot of things online, there seems to be a little bit of misinformation out there. I think some people are getting the wrong end of the stick, and so I thought this was a great time to sit down with you guys and share everything you need to know, so ultimately you can make the right decision when it comes to your own skincare routine. I'm going to break this video into different parts. We're going to talk a bit about the ban itself, how it came about. I'm going to share with what impacts people can expect to see. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you my top 5 alternative recommendations for the Beauty of Joseon sunscreens if you want to make the switch. So, the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen ban, which also is known as the Korean sunscreen ban on certain sites. This actually came about very recently, and I think took a lot of people by surprise. If you know about sunscreen legislation, really it shouldn't have been a surprise. I think it just came out of nowhere, which is where that shock factor came in. So every country in the world will have different regulations when it comes to sunscreen. Whilst most of the world has moved towards newer generation filters, the ones that have come out in the past 10 years that give a better level of protection, more broad spectrum protection, and just a better feel on application, the US hasn't. Now, the US sunscreen laws are governed by an organisation known as the FDA, and they haven't updated their legislation in like the past 20 years. So, if you go to the US and you buy a sunscreen in a physical store, it will have old style, old generation sunscreen filters. Do they still work? Absolutely, but they don't always give the best experience. They're not always as broad spectrum as some of the newer generation ones, protecting against UVB and UVA rays. And they also tend to sting the eyes. They might be a bit thicker, gloopier. They might be breaking us out. Those sort of experiences we got with sunscreens when we were younger, say 20 years ago, that's kind of still unfortunately the case in a lot of US approved sunscreens. Now, US consumers, they're crafty. They get around this by actually buying in sunscreens from Korea, Europe, Australasia. They have these new generation filters which they enjoy, and I know so many of you guys out there do just that. It's for that reason that one of the biggest brands in the US is actually Beauty of Joseon, a Korean brand which now actually sells more units in the US than it does in its home territory of South Korea, if you can believe that. It's just gone from strength to strength to strength, and that's why I think a lot of people were surprised when around 2 weeks ago Beauty of Joseon announced that they'd be removing their 5 sunscreens from sale in the US. Now, this led to a lot of people to refer it as the sunscreen ban, the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen ban, so on and so forth. I got a little bit worried about whether this is an issue with sunscreens, Korean sunscreens, you know, the implications that it had for our skincare routine. Well, first of all, let me dispel that myth. This isn't actually an issue with Korean sunscreens. Like I say, the newer generation filters used in Korean sunscreens, a lot of European and Australasian sunscreens, are actually better. And scientific studies back that up. They give a better level of protection and ultimately they feel better on the skin. And that's important because actually sunscreen is only good if you actually use it. If you have a sunscreen that you enjoy applying, feels great on the skin, then you're more likely to use it, as opposed to the old style sunscreens which we actively avoided and kind of only ever wanted to apply when we're on the beach and we kind of felt like we had to. Now, the reason that Beauty of Joseon kind of got into a little bit of hot water with the authorities in the US is they decided to build a US warehouse, speed up their shipping times. It's such a big market for them now. They wanted a logistical hub in the US. Makes total sense. And they were going to ship their sunscreens from that base, which is a huge no-no. If you want to import Korean, European, or Australian sunscreens into the US as a consumer, you absolutely can do that. But brands aren't allowed to ship out non-approved sunscreens from bases in the US, be it a store, a warehouse, or whatever. And so Beauty of Joseon quickly realized they either had to have a huge fine and break the law, or they had to stop selling their sunscreens. This is actually the case with a lot of other brands. You'll notice if you go into Ulta, one of the biggest skincare retailers in the US, you won't find either of these sunscreens, the Skin 1004 or the Haru Haru. Both brands stocked there, but their sunscreens aren't. For the same reason that whilst these are amazing, phenomenal sunscreens, the FDA is still backward and doesn't actually recognize them as sunscreens at all. This is a real shame, but hopefully that explains kind of how we got to where we are. So I'd say one of the biggest questions I get asked is, how is this going to impact other Korean sunscreen brands? Well, if a Korean brand wants to have a logistical base in the US, be it in a retailer or in a warehouse, they too will not be able to sell their sunscreens to the US market from those bases. And so this makes it really difficult for Korean brands to expand in that territory without having to lose some of their most popular products. So this kind of gives brands a couple of options. They can either continue to send and ship their sunscreens from their international partners, which does run the risk of maybe a little unwanted attention from the regulators in the US, and I think brands probably won't want to do that. Or they can come up with a US approved formulation specific to that market. That's what a brand did recently. This is Crave Beauty. They had their original Beat the Sun formula, which was beautiful, lightweight, new generation filters. But again, they wanted to sell in the US, so they reformulated to conform to US old generation filter requirements. And this is the product they came up with. Unfortunately, it didn't feel as good. It was a lot heavier on application. It didn't have the same level of protection as their old one. And so a lot of people said, well, it's lost a lot of its unique selling points, and it never really did as well. Now, Crave Beauty are going from strength to strength with their other products, which I love, but their sunscreen kind of doesn't really get mentioned anymore, and I think it's because of that reformulation. Now, Beauty of Joseon have decided to go down that route, reformulate for the US market, and, you know, we'll see. We'll test it out. We'll give it a fair hearing, but I imagine it'll be the same issue with Crave. It'll be thicker, it won't feel as good, you might get some sting into the eyes, and it just won't be the same as the original formulation. So if you're a North American consumer, what can you do? Well, you can still buy some of the other amazing Korean sunscreens from some international distributors such as Stylevana and Yes Style. Those sites tend to have slightly longer delivery times, so you have to have a little bit of patience, but they will still stock a lot of these cult classic Korean sunscreens, at least for the time being. Or you can switch to some other brands that are there. So I'm just going to share with you what I think are my 5 favorite sunscreens that kind of mimic that lightweight, beautiful, elegant finish of the Beauty of Joseon one. So first up, let's talk about one that I've already mentioned. This is the Skin 1004 Madagascar Centella Hylu Seeker Water Fit Sunscreen. That has a ridiculous long name, but don't worry, I have linked it in the description box below and multiple places where you can buy it. This is absolutely gorgeous, super lightweight, new generation filters, feels stunning on the skin. If you see how that applies, it is just absolutely beautiful. Invisible, sinks in without a trace, and is a really nice option if you've got sensitive skin, because I find that this doesn't irritate the eyes or the skin at all. Just a really nice product. I created my own sunscreen, and I'm so passionate about having those new generation filters that, of course, that's the core component. This is the Mad About Skin Protect and Hydrate sunscreen. So where I think this differs from Korean sunscreens is the volume you get. 100 mils, which when you compare it to the 50 ml bottle that you traditionally get with Korean sunscreens, there's a big difference. At the moment, this is actually on buy one, get one free too. So I'll have to link to this, as I will all the other products, down in the description box below. So this works out, if you do the buy one, get one free, you actually get it for each unit for £8.99 for 100 ml. So it's half the price, double the quantity. So if you're looking to save and still get those next generation filters, then I think this is a great option that I'm so proud of. You see how it applies? It's super lightweight, sinks in without a trace. No ashiness, no white cast, it doesn't sting the eyes, and most importantly, it doesn't stain the clothes. You know those sunscreens that leave that yellow mark around? We don't have that. This stain free, which I think is a great option for people that use their sunscreens day in, day out and don't want everything to leave a mark. One of my absolute favorite Korean sunscreens at the moment is this. This is the JOSEON Airy Fit Sunscreen. A beautiful formulation, and this is actually a smaller Korean skincare brand, growing all the time, but is smaller, so probably won't have the same issue that Beauty of Joseon has for a couple of years now. So you could definitely slot this into your routine and get used to it and enjoy it for the long period. This is beautiful. Again, super lightweight, won't leave any ashiness on the skin, and leaves behind a beautiful level of hydration. I've recommended this to a lot of people, and they've all said how absolutely stunning and beautiful it is. So yeah, I think that's a little bit of a smaller Korean brand that you should expect to see a lot more of in the future. Then finally, for those of you that like a little mineral sunscreen action, and I know whilst mineral sunscreens aren't really a big thing here in Europe or in Australasia, they are quite big in the US market. This is the Haru Haru Black Rice Pure Mineral Daily Sunscreen. This is really nice, slightly thicker than the others, because it's mineral based, so you should expect that, but still disappears without a trace. Like I say, it takes a little longer to work in, but if you persevere with it, it will disappear. And for people that like a mineral sunscreen as opposed to a chemical one, this is a really nice option that feels beautiful. Again, it's fragrance free, as are all the ones I've just recommended, so it's not going to leave behind that overwhelming fragrance that some products do. Whether you opt for one of the smaller Korean skincare brands like JOSEON, you go for my brand, which is based out of here, the UK, but we ship internationally to the 4 corners of the world, including the US, or you go for a mineral option with Haru Haru. There's something really here for everyone. I think it's a real shame that the FDA haven't updated their sunscreen legislation so that people can enjoy these new generation filters with ease. Walk into a store, pick them up, because really, sunscreen should be accessible to everyone, and I hope that changes. In the truth, it's probably not going to change anytime soon. So if you're watching from the US or Canada and have been impacted by this, I would fully recommend get your hands on one of these alternatives, or continue to shop Beauty of Joseon from either Stylevana, Yes Style, Olive Young, one of the other big retailers that ship internationally, and I'll link those down below. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and wherever you are in the world, guys. Stay safe, stay well, and love your skin. Take care. Bye!